Welcome to The Conduit. It's wonderful to see so many of you here. My name is Lily Blaxall. I'm head of programming here, and it's so exciting to be introducing tonight's event, which we've been looking forward to for a very long time, in celebration of the remarkable book, The Future is Peace. And I just wanted to let you know before I go that the book is available from our friends in Stanford's, just in that corner over there. And Maoz and Aziz will be signing copies from this very stage after their conversation, so please do make sure you've picked up a copy and then bring it to the stage to get signed. It's wonderful to see so many Conduit members in the house with us tonight. Anyone who's here as a guest and would like to find out more about membership, please do come and talk to me or one of my colleagues. We'd be delighted to tell you more about the work we do. And I'm really excited to say that it is one of my colleagues who will be chairing the discussion this evening, our Director of Content and Convening, Karen Kaufman. And Karen will be able to tell you more about the remarkable pair that we have with us in our company tonight. So please give a very warm welcome to Karen, Maoz and Aziz. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Good evening and welcome. I was going to say, thank you so much for bringing the Middle East climate, I guess, with you.
You're welcome.
Also grateful for air conditioning. Grateful it's cooled down a little bit.
I just want to say we don't need it. I'm happy with the heat.
Last night we were doing really well without it.
Yeah, no, that's not true. You just get used to it, and then it's very, very difficult. But at the Conduit, we definitely speak a lot about change makers. And I think that Aziz and Maoz are two really shining examples in the darkest of days of what change makers really means. Not just change makers, but actually peacemakers. Their book, The Future is Peace, is a New York Times bestseller. With your help tonight, we're also going to make it a UK bestseller because the book has just come out. And they are here with us today as part of their global tour, bringing a universal message that change is not only possible, it's actually inevitable. Aziz is a Palestinian from East Jerusalem with roots across the Holy Land. At the height of the First Intifada in 1980, he watched his brother Taysir be dragged out of bed and taken in for questioning by Israeli police. Aziz, you were 9 years old at the time?
I was 9.
Taysir was released about a year later after being incarcerated in some of Israel's worst prisons. He died a couple of months later as a result of the injuries sustained during questioning. So he knows the brutal reality of the situation on the ground. Maoz and your family, your roots run deep in Israel, particularly in the agricultural communities on the border with Gaza. Your parents were murdered by Hamas in their home in Netiv Asara, which is just meters from that border, on the 7th of October 2023. The house was burnt to the ground with his parents still in it. Both of you are sons of farmers, both are tour guides and travelers. Both have seen friends and family murdered and brutalized by centuries-old conflict that is hijacked to serve a nefarious purpose, frequently. But both have rejected the way of hatred and suspicion to bring us an important message tonight. So thank you. I want to start with the moment you really found each other. It was one of the darkest periods, the darkest days in the Middle East. And at the start of the book, you write, "Our mutual loss and pain, along with a shared vision of peace, brought us together at a time when the violence of war had pushed our people further apart than ever." What can you tell us about that moment, Aziz, when you decided to reach out to Maoz? And Maoz, about that decision to not just accept that hand, but actually to really cling on to it almost like a lifeline?
Yeah, so it was right after October 7th. I got a message from a friend who knew Maoz, knew me, and he told me about Maoz's parents. I've only met Maoz once, 10 years earlier. We both work in travel. I started Majdi Tours. Maoz started Abraham Hostels, the Jesus Trail, and Fawzi Azar. And so we met for 10 minutes because our companies work together. But after that, we became friends on Facebook, which, as we know, where true friendships happen. And right when I got that message, I had to think, do I send this message or not? I knew I want to send the message. The question was, do I send it today or do I send it in a few days? And it's a hard questions, because is somebody who just lost his parents ready to hear from someone who can be perceived as the other or as the enemy? And I decided to send it because, one, I felt it's the right thing to do, and my message was obviously a message of condolences and saying I stand with you and I'm with you in this time, and I didn't expect a response. And I've done this before, and more people don't respond than respond, and this is not a judgment at anybody who doesn't respond. When you're going through this kind of grief, it's very difficult. But I did get a response, and within days, Maoz was on TV talking about, and to me as well, about how he's not crying only for his parents, but also for the children being killed in Gaza. And that level of empathy is something that for the weeks, for months after October 7th, even among people who consider themselves peace activists, were extremely lacking. There was a fear of Palestinians who felt, what if I reach out now and then what's going to happen in Gaza? We knew what's going to happen in Gaza, and it's going to be used as a justification. And people on the Israeli side were feeling, oh, well, if we reach out, are we saying that what happened on October 7th is okay? And so there was such a lack of empathy. And what happened between us is we broke away from that kind of divide.
We were both of us, Aziz and I, were prepared for October 7th. It's a brotherhood that meant to happen. We were walking on parallel path for so long, touching base for 10 minutes back in 2014. But now I'm sitting, and it's the first time I'm saying it. I just really realized that now. First, we were prepared. Again, my brother is here. We cannot see anyone. The flashlights are really very powerful. As a family, we were prepared to know exactly what to do and how to act when this tragic moment happened. And of course, you can guess who prepared us, our parents. And so 2 days after, when Magen asked us, our three sisters and me, asked us and told us that we must make a family decision, a family choice to reject revenge, not to call to avenge the deaths of our parents, but doing exactly the opposite, to call for peace and reconciliation in order to continue our beloved Bila and Jacobi parents' legacy. And Magen also explained us that avenging the death not only won't bring them back to life, but it will only escalate the cycle of bloodshed we both Palestinian and Israeli been trapped with. And that night, and through the Shiva, the Jewish 7 days of mourning, it's the most emotional, painful, fragile, and tragic days of my life. The level of pain cannot be described. I tried in the Future is Peace to describe it, but it goes beyond words. And so the day after, when Aziz is reaching out to me, and he was prepared to reach out because he knew the pain, he knew the suffering, he knew the lack of empathy that we all going to experience unfortunately, not only in the days and weeks, in the years to come. So it was a stand. It was a stand. It was an act of courage, of bravery. That after Aziz became a peacemaker and co-chair of the Parents Circle Family Forum, which the friends of in the UK should be here tonight, and they are also supporting us here in our UK tour, and co-founding Majdi Tours, learning so much about also about the Israeli narrative and the Israeli trauma and pain, not only about the Palestinian one, and acknowledging and recognizing human being as human being. And when Aziz reached out, it was literally like a hand reaching out, saving me from drowning into the ocean of pain and sorrow. And in the last 2.5 years, we co-founded Interact International, our NGO with a bold mission to end the Israeli-Palestinian conflict by 2030. This is our mission. This is why we're here. Not
Clock's
to...
ticking.
Yes, please, read our lips. Remember, please write this down by 2030. And Karen, you asked me before, what was the most, which question do you remember? And it was recently, I don't remember where, I think in France, one of the hosts and the chair asked us, why so long? And this is the question. Why so long? If we all work together, we can end the Israeli-Palestinian conflict today. Today. And this is exactly what we prove, and we'll talk about it in the book, like all conflict ends, so will the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. And since then, Aziz and I forged our brotherhood and co-authoring The Future is Peace. And now, again, I'm proud and privileged and honored to have the opportunity to say it now a few times a day that I won another brother on October 7th. I won Aziz. Aziz!
So thank you so much for that. And I think actually that leads very nicely into another tale that you tell right at the beginning of your book about two brothers. It's a biblical parable about two brothers basically who each one separately decides, oh, my brother is suffering, I need to give him some of my grain. And each night they will sneak a bag of grain into the other storeroom, and every morning wake up and count the bags and realize there's still the same amount there. And in the middle of the night, one night, they meet each other on the hill. And that hill, as the story goes, is Jerusalem. Yeah. And I think, the thing about that story as well is that it's a universal story about sibling love, about community, about coming together, about supporting each other. And the book itself, you spend 8 days traveling the Holy Land together and kind of like seeing these stories through each other's eyes. And it's absolutely remarkable. And you also confront the issue of the narratives that you've been told and the narratives that you've been brought up with. And you confront it in a very, very courageous way. And we'll come back to that issue of courage again. But also, it's those narratives and the language which is also currently being used to drive a wedge between the peoples and between the communities. It's usurped to build this false narrative of us versus them. Not just in the Middle East, I think, but this is something that we will probably also recognize that is happening across Western culture. Where there is no vision, the people perish. You quote the Bible as saying. But the vision we are currently being sold is one of more violence. So how do you reclaim that narrative to help provide a vision and a purpose?
Okay. You have to read the book that's a good intro. We go through detailed explanation, but I think partially it's through our own stories. So both of us, have been sold that kind of narrative and grew up with that narrative. And it's not that narrative is wrong. Some of it is true. I mean, what happened to Maoz's parents is true. What happened to my brother Taysir, who you see in this photo, is true. This is not an imagination. There are evil things that are being done. There are horrible things that are being done. And we go into details. Also, in The Future's Peace, we don't only talk about beautiful, we're going to all have peace, it's going to be nice, because I think no one would read the book if we not connect it to the reality. And so we talk about the occupation, we talk about people being killed, we talk about children who are starving, we talk about settlers, we talk about Hamas, we talk about the Palestinian Authority, we talk about all of those things, because if you ignore reality, again, you're not going to know where you are going. So that's one. But two, we both understand that without recognizing and understanding the narrative of the other, you're never going to be able to have a conversation. You don't have to agree with everything. There are things we'll agree on, and there are things we might never agree on. And in The Future's Peace, we do that. We say, we write the book where Maoz will talk about something, and then I talk about something after, and then we talk together in one voice. And the reason we did that is we wanted to give each other the freedom to say, here's my narrative, here's a story I grew up with. It might not be historically accurate, it might not convince you, but this is a narrative I grew up with. This is a narrative that most maybe Palestinians or many Israelis will subscribe to. So I talk, for example, chapter 2. I think if you're pro-Israel or pro-Palestine, you'll struggle with it because it talks about the Nakba, Palestinian catastrophe. We interview an amazing guy, Abed Abu Shahade, who is from there, and he tells us incredible stories, but he also tells us the pain of his family and his family who are in Gaza and friends who have been killed, and he tells us what happened in the Nakba. And then in the same chapter, Maoz talks about his family coming from Europe, escaping the Holocaust, and Zionism and the Zionist ideology. And so you have both of these literally in the same chapter. And then we transition from all of that into, okay, we have two set of histories. We have some disagreements about how we view them. We call it Nakba, Israelis call it Independence Day. Then what do we do now? Because we can argue about Nakba and Independence Day for the next month, and we're probably not gonna, with everyone here, I'm sure many of us will not agree, but then what do we do? Do we continue arguing, or do we find a way to say, how do we move forward to what's next? And that's how we found the solutions. How do we move forward to how do we stop this absurdity?
Yeah, I would just add that we can definitely argue and debate, and sometimes we'll win the debate, sometimes we lose, but while we are winning or losing the debate, people on the ground are losing their life. And our mission is not to win debates, not to win an argument, but to win life. And in order to win life, we must achieve a lasting peace in the Holy Land.
So whenever we get in a debate, I always remind Maoz of that, and so I tell him, you have to let me win. Because you said you shouldn't be about winning, so just let me win.
So Aziz is the winner! Yeah.
I'm glad you've got
Can I say one more thing? I wonder if you can use that argument with your wife.
With my wife, I have no arguments whatsoever. She's always, was, is, and will be the winner.
Thank you very much. Maoz is being very, very smart here because this is being live streamed, it's being taped. She will have the proof
Maybe
later,
she's already here.
And I know Shlomit, and she is always right. 100% in agreement.
I think it's really interesting. You've got the picture up there from the TED Talk that you did in 2024. So it was less than a year after the start of October 7th, the Gaza war, etc. And I think there's a lovely bit in the book as well where you talk about how, Maoz, I think you say to Aziz, that you will reflect the language that Aziz uses to talk about his brother. If you say dead, if you say killed, etc., that nuance is so important. And again, we're talking about narratives here. The nuance is so important. It's so lacking right now in these discussions. It's like, how on earth have we reached a situation where being nuanced is being radical?
Yeah. So when we start working on our TED Talk, and they ask us specifically not to have it manuscript, that they want it to be as authentic as possible, not to plan it in advance. And Chris, the CEO of TED, we were back in Geneva that day, and he said, just start talking for 10 minutes between yourself. And we finished those 10 minutes, say, okay, you are ready, just come. And then we arrived to Vancouver, and I arrived 2 days after we put the remains of my parents back in the ground. So it was another, very emotional time and experience for me, and extremely stressful, because when we arrived there, we realized that we are opening the TED convention of that year. Basically, we are setting the tone for the 5 coming days. And there were also, amazing people, from Nobel Prize laureate to politicians, to philanthropists, to educators, researchers that gave talks there. So there was a lot of pressure on us, and we said we must model equality between us. So, and because we didn't want to practice, and there's so much pressure, we said, so Aziz, if you will say my brother was killed, I will say the same. My parents were killed. If Aziz will say my brother was murdered, I will say the same, my parents were murdered. Because we witnessed so many times that when we are being introduced or approached to, many will say, Maoz parents were murdered, and Aziz lost his brother. And so the assimilarity of the conflict, and this is an asymmetric conflict, if you had any doubts about it. So the asymmetry of the conflict is forced on us, but we are equal. We are modeling equality. We are modeling the future. So in the nuance, when we speak, we practice it now very naturally. Okay, yeah. I win the argument, Aziz.
He won that argument.
Okay,
yes.
I think it's 1-1, just in case anybody's keeping score in this asymmetric argument. But I think it's time for a bit of a reality check. All right, this week marks 30 years since Benjamin Netanyahu was first elected Prime Minister of Israel. This was less than a year after Yitzhak Rabin was murdered for signing the Oslo Accords, for envisioning a peace between Israel and the Palestinians. You know, for over 25 years now, we've been told that there is no partner. Anyone who still believes in peace is basically deemed naive, let's be honest, right? You'll be met with sayings like, oh, you don't know the Arabs like I do, or you don't know what Israelis are capable of. So peace builders are being marginalized both at home and abroad. That third way, again, is cut out of this discussion. So what is your response to the critics who are saying that you are naive and who dismiss this work that you are doing as being nothing more than a fantasy?
Our response is simple. You are the naive one. Because I'm 45 years old, still young.
And cute.
I have seen so many wars in my lifetime, so many wars. The first ones, I was 5, 6, 7 years old. I was shot at first time when I was 8 years old, 7. I got beaten up by soldiers. I've seen so many war after war after war. And in every war, the argument is, this is the one that's gonna fix it. This is it. And yet, I've seen more than a dozen wars, maybe 20 wars in my lifetime, just in the Middle East. And which one has gone well? What, the Iraq war fixed the world? Did Afghanistan war fix Afghanistan? I've been to many of these places. Did the Libya war fix things? Did the Syria war fix things? Did the many wars that Netanyahu has promised again and again of, you let me go to Gaza and just get rid of Hamas. Give me just another 3 months. Let me just go into Rafah. He did all of that. Killed so many people. Still Hamas is in charge in Gaza. So his promises have led to nothing. The war in Iran a year ago, and they told us they destroyed the nuclear power of Iran, and then 9 months later, they're like, okay, we're ready for another one, because apparently we didn't. So, and to me, it's amazing that people continue to believe in that. Like, how many times can we be sold the same lie and believe it? And it's likewise, Hamas has promised again and again, if we get the resistance, if we fight back with fire, we will get freedom. And that has not worked either. So I think at some point, we have to call spade spade. The ones who calling for violence are the naive ones. But unfortunately, their naivete is leading to people in our families being killed, to the destruction of the whole region, to war crimes happening on our watch. And so we need to start saying, no, we are not naive. It is the exact opposite. Those who believe in war are the ones who are naive, and leaders, us trusting political leaders, they're not really leaders, they're politicians, who promise such nonsense, we need to start calling them for it. And by the way, that's not only Israel and Palestine, that's you here in the United Kingdom. Because the policies that happen outside Israel and Palestine is the reason, in many times, is the reason this continues in Israel and Palestine. Whether it is the weapons that the United Kingdom has sold to the whole region because it makes a lot of money, so it's good business, or that's how it's viewed by many, or whether it's the lack of support for any peace work in Israel and Palestine, or whether it is the really lukewarm interaction or investment or intention or applying international law or dividing in many ways, and many of your politicians do it, the Jewish and Muslim communities here in the United Kingdom. This is not only on Israelis and Palestinians, it's also on politicians here and on us as a people here in the United Kingdom.
Yeah, and we were asked by John Stewart the exact same question. And just to tell you again,
I put it better.
Sorry?
I put it better.
You did much better, and you are even funnier than him, Karen. I don't know how John Stewart is popular here, but what we were saying on our US book tour, that how many, were asking the question, how many people you know that met 3 popes? Not 1, not 2, 3 popes. We had the opportunity to meet Pope Francis, then Pope Leo, only 3 weeks after he was elected, and just recently Pope John, the Jewish Pope. He's so popular in the US, much more than the American Pope Leo. Naive are those who believe that bombs will bring quiet, that war will defend, and war will bring security. They failed not only in the recent decades in the Middle East, but they've been failing all throughout human civilization. War is a disease of humanity that we must work together to heal ourselves. And there is no better healing than peace. So we all should work together. We are the voice of reason. We are the voice of logic. And I want maybe to connect it to where we are sitting. One day I also know how to pronounce conduit. Conduit. One day, I don't know, it doesn't come together for my Hebrew accent and English the way I was taught. It's why also, Karen, I say that we were prepared. Both of us, Aziz and I, are entrepreneurs. And we choose tourism as a way to open gates, build bridges over those walls of ignorance, of physical walls that we both, Palestinians and Israelis, been separated within for so long. And as entrepreneurs, we know how to overcome challenges. We know how is it to be the only one who believe in a vision or a dream or a concept or a product. This is where we are coming from. And it was somewhere in 2018. I was one of the co-founders of Abraham Hostels and Tours. In the peak, we had something like 200 employees, 4 different locations, and a tour company that was giving service or taking something like 8,000 tourists on a month on a day tour. And then I said, in which world are we living in? We are living in a broken world. And we're all living within 3 crises. It doesn't matter UK, Israel, Palestine, US, or everywhere else. We live within 3 crises. The political crisis, the economic crisis, and the environmental crisis. And I asked myself, Maoz, how can you become part of the solution, and at the same time, and I think this is the reason why all of you here and some of you are members, because we also entered a new era, the era of meaning. We are looking for a meaning that we'll be able to tell ourselves, our kids, our friends, our family, why are we doing what we are doing? How can we motivate ourselves to keep doing what we are doing, or to change our career, to change our life course, to change where we live? So how can we bridge between this era of meaning and the 3 global crises? And my answer was that I want to be part of the solution. Not only as an individual, but also in the business I run, I managed, I co-founded. And this is when, in 2019, we changed Abraham into an impact company, reporting for the 17 SDGs, Sustainable Development Goals. And this is exactly why Aziz Mejdi Tours is a big corporate, listed in the US. So for us, peace is not an ideal. It's not something we wish for. It's something that we are doing in every aspect of our life, as individuals and in our business life. And we do believe that peace and justice should be in any aspects of our life, because that's the only way to fix the broken reality we are all living within, to bridge between the 3 global crises and the era of meaning. And if each of us will act to promote, to bring justice and peace to the world in any aspects he can, together, like you have 2,000 members here. It's a huge power. It's a huge network of connections, of leads, of resources. If we'll work together to achieve that, I believe, again, like I said, the question she asked, why it will take you so long to achieve a lasting peace, I can, again, maybe not today, but tomorrow for sure. Tomorrow for sure we can achieve lasting peace in Israel and Palestine.
Okay, but you need a movement behind that. You need to galvanize the people. And it's clear that, or hopefully it's clear that, you haven't just written this incredible book and meeting celebrities, hanging out with the Pope, and, embarking on this
we
world
are waiting
tour.
for the next one.
No, don't say that. You participated in the Olympic torch relay ahead of the Winter Olympics. Like, it's incredible, the message of peace that you are bringing around the world. But you also need the people behind you at home, right? Yeah. And, Maoz, on the Israeli side, you can be challenged by being called a traitor for believing in what you believe and saying what you're saying about the Nakba and the Palestinian history. Palestinians, there's plenty of objection to normalization of talks, right? Of normalizations of relationships. Just doing what you're doing right now, right? Sitting on a stage with Israelis is that again, we're talking about radical. But you also did something quite radical a couple of weeks ago in terms of hosting the People's Peace Summit and the work that you're doing, not just with Interact, but also with the It's Time Coalition. So I'd love the people in this room to hear a little bit more about how you are building that movement and how you are kind of like circumventing the naysayers to make sure that you've got the power behind you to make peace happen before 2030.
It's such a big question.
We
could spend the next 40 minutes on it, but I'll try to be brief. Important question, and I agree. There are people who will call us traitors. There are people, I'm sure, who do. But then I cannot think of history of any peacemaker who's made a difference who wasn't called a traitor at some point. Well, Gandhi was killed by people of his own community. Rabin was killed by people in his own community. MLK in the United States, and I can keep going on and on. If you want to create a change, you cannot just go with the stream and say, okay, I need to agree with everybody. You do have to challenge even your own communities, and you need to say, here is a different path for us. What we've done hasn't worked. Let's see another direction. And on the accusation of normalization, I would say most people who accuse us of that definitely haven't read the book, because normalization, just for those who don't know, it means you, by speaking to Maoz, by speaking to Israelis, a Palestinian is normalizing the occupation. It's making it palatable, acceptable. Now, I would say there are people who do that. They get hosted in bigger venues also than Maoz and I. They have a lot of platforms. And those are people who are not looking to do a change. There are people who are looking to get followers, to get likes, to get whatever it is. We're not happy with the status quo. We make it very clear. If you want the status quo, you come to the wrong meeting. We are here because we want to change it. We are here because we want to end the occupation. We are here because we believe every Israeli and every Palestinian is equal. Their lives are equal. There is no difference between them. And if you disagree with us, then we don't meet on a value level. We believe everyone deserves dignity, everyone deserves recognition, everyone deserves safety and security. Everyone, regardless if you're an Israeli or a Palestinian, to the same point, to the same level. And it's challenging to some people, but this is our values that we decided we will pursue. And how do you build the movement? Is you start having a vision. If you don't have that vision that says, our vision is that we are equal, we start from there and start reminding people that peace is possible, that peace is inevitable. Because for Israelis and Palestinians, I think it's less even that they disagree with us, it's more for many people that they just lost hope and they live in despair. They think, oh, it's just impossible. I don't see how it's possible. And this is what a 30-year of the same leaders, people like Netanyahu and people like also Abu Mazen and so on, they have fed us this like your voice doesn't matter. This is true in the UK too. People have started to believe, what can I do? One of the most sad things when I go to schools, and this has been going on for quite a while, and I've spoken Israeli and Palestinian schools, hundreds maybe of them, and kids would tell me, 17, 18-year-old kids, these are either going to college, going to the army, and they'll say, but my voice doesn't matter. I'm like, you're fighting for those ideas that you're saying your voice doesn't matter. You're willing to die. You want to go to the army and die for something you're saying your voice doesn't matter for? Why would you do that? And so we have to remind people that there is a vision. And then we need to ask people, which is why we are here, both in Israel and Palestine and abroad, because you influence what happens there, to amplify that vision. Picture behind me is from Verona. We were invited because the mayor of Verona and the bishop of Verona decided to amplify that vision. And if you don't know, the mayor and the bishop of Verona are not Jewish or Muslim. I think usually bishops are not Jewish or Muslim. And yet they took this seriously. Why would they invite us? Because they believed that the vision is bigger than just their own city. And when they were asked to provide people a list of people to carry the torch, they put us at the top of that list. And they gave us twice the length, which I assumed we're gonna have to run really hard. So I started working out. I'll thank them for that. And then we got there and they said, can you walk as slow as you can? And that torch is heavy, by the way. I was working out my legs, instead it was my arms I needed to do heavy lifting. But it was incredible. And we got in so much media because of it. We got more legitimization because of it. And that helps us back home. And so the more we do of that, and eventually what really helps us even more to build that movement is to push for policy change outside that impact life there. That's why we come to the United Kingdom, to the EU, to the United States, and saying, we need you to incentivize and support peacemakers, and we need you to sanction. We need you to do policies that do impact on the ground. The people who are carrying violence, the people who are killing people, whether they're prime ministers or whether they are soldiers or chief of staffs or whatever they are, whether they're Jewish, whether they're Muslim, whether they're Christian, doesn't matter. They need to be sanctioned and they need to be stopped. So you have to do all of these things. And then I would add one more. We need to be part of the humanitarian movement as peacemakers. So one of the things Interact does in Palestine, right after October 7th, we were giving food and water to Palestinians in villages that were cut off of access to food and water. We did that in partnership with Rabbis for Human Rights, good friends. And the only way you could get that food at the time to those villages was it through the rabbis, because we were not allowed as Palestinians to drive in. That makes Palestinians look at me and say, okay, he's not just talking about peace. He's doing stuff around it. We gave this year 40 scholarships to Palestinian women in a leadership program that we are doing. These women would not be able to afford college without it. Me as a peacemaker come across different, and our team come across different when we are doing that work. And that's, again, where we need governments, we need individuals to come and say, I want to support this work. Because without being legitimate in our own community, you're absolutely right, we wouldn't be successful. But to be legitimate there, we need everyone's support here.
And Maoz, just very quickly on the Israeli side.
So I think the peace movement was reborn after October 7th. And we have Rachel here from AllMap, and you are in the board of the Friends of New Israel Fund. I think for the first time, again, we also were working in the belief that the conflict can be manageable, and one day it will be solved. And we were working to create shared life within Israel and Palestine, dialogue group, maybe reconciliation group, but we didn't have a great, bold, courageous vision to bring a lasting peace to our land. And now we are offering this vision, and we are working together. We are sharing knowledge. We are sharing resources. We are building together more resources. So in AllMap, we have a record number of members now. It's an umbrella organization of Palestinian-Israeli civil society organization. In its time coalition, that Aziz and I are among the leader of the coalition, more than 80 civil society organizations are members, and more are joining. And I think for many of our events are being sponsored and chaired and championed by many organizations. So we do many things with standing together, with the Parent Circle, with NIF, with Olmep. We were in Paris at Sababa, an amazing venue, concept, restaurants, owned and managed by Palestinian Raja from Khan Younis and Edgar Israeli from Jerusalem that partner with activists from Paris, really amazing venue. So we are working together, we are building momentum, we are gaining power and legitimacy, and again, we have only started, and we don't need to be the majority. We need to be enough. How much enough? The settlers are enough. They are not the majority, but they hijacked our past. They hijacked our present. So our mission is to activate those who are here in the room, those who are with us, sharing the same values of equality and dignity, acknowledgement, recognition, reconciliation, and needing security and safety. So it's not enough to hold those values. It's time to act based on those values.
I have one more question, which I want you to answer very, very quickly, and then we're going to go to audience questions, okay? It's clear you've got the courage, you've got the vision. There are elections happening. And the books.
And the looks.
The books and the looks.
The books and the looks. That's the next book. We'll call it The Books and the Looks.
So yes, it's time to exploit it and to use it. Elections are happening in Israel, September, October time. Elections haven't happened in Palestine since 2006, maybe? Right? Abbas is the
He
seventh
didn't want to bother
period
us.
of his
He's like, you guys
Tulsa."
stay home, I'll stay in power.
So the question is, why aren't you running? And I want Maoz to answer first, and then Aziz, and then audience questions. Okay. Why aren't you running? Like, it's clear civil
Shlomit is
society
here?
as
My
well.
wife is here? Not yet, okay.
He can say.
So I will run. No. We don't have the privilege to wait for the election. We don't have it. The urgency, the level of the humanization that is happening now, we need a spark to create what happened in Rwanda back in the 90s. What we have experienced in the last 2.5 years can be just the beginning of what we can witness in the days to come. We don't have the privilege to wait to the election. And what was proven in and again, I learned from Aziz, who worked in more than 60 conflict areas around the world, many times, that those who sign the peace agreement, the peace accord, the peace treaties, are those who only a day before were committing war crimes. But we need to create the pressure from the ground and from the international community. Last September, no one in Israel, definitely in the Israeli discourse, believed that all hostages, live or dead, will be returned. We said, Hamas is not going to bring them back. And I said it's not within the Israeli government interest to bring them back. But through diplomatic pressure from Qatar, Turkey and Hamas, and there was another one on Hamas, and from the US and Europe over the Israeli government, it happened. So why to wait to the election? Why to wait? We cannot wait. We must pressure those who are in power now to make peace today. So this is my take about the election. It's not as important as we think it is, and it doesn't matter who's in power. He can be the one to make peace.
Anything to add?
Well, we don't have elections, so it's easier. I always wonder what is worst, in the sense, if you have a terrible leader that you keep electing, like Netanyahu, or if you have one that you have the terrible leader that you have no chance to get rid of, like Abbas. So it's kind of an interesting dilemma on what's worse. I agree with Maoz, but I do think that pressure we're talking about is to get a lasting peace and to end corruption. And so having pressure on the Palestinian Authority is very important. The fact is, young people People my age have never had a chance to run for an office, never had a chance to even vote. Most Palestinians don't know how to vote. Majority of Palestinians are younger than me, significantly younger than me, and they've never had a chance to be involved in any of this. And so people often will say, Palestinians this, Palestinians that, but we don't have any opportunity. And Europe is the biggest supporter of the Palestinian Authority. They can make pressure, they can push for that change, they can say, we need you, not just to do an election. Election is an outwardly kind of expression of democracy, but it's institutions. Our institutions are corrupt. And I don't want the dissolution of those organizations or these institutions. I want the reform of it, because the dissolution of it can be very problematic. It can lead to a lot of terrible things, but we need a serious reform, and we need outside pressure for that reform to happen. So yeah, pressure Israel, pressure the Palestinian Authority, make sure younger people are involved, because at the end of the day, without the outside support, neither of those regimes could have sustained themselves the way they have today.
Thank you very much. Okay, I see the first hand that's gone up is actually Paul Van Zyl, who is the co-founder and CEO of The Conduit. Paul.
Hi, guys. First, I just say you're extraordinary, and I'm just blessed to hear you, and I think you've done really, really, really remarkable work. Everybody's going to say that before they speak, so I just put that on record. I want to ask a question about something that you said about equality and asymmetry, because I think that is such an important insight, that you treat each other with equality. That's a sine qua non of peace building. But the conflict is deeply asymmetrical. And if in the treatment of each other with equality, you create a peace which cements a power relationship that's asymmetrical and keeps an injustice frozen, that's a problem. And you both are extraordinarily sophisticated in your call for action and activism. But how do you avoid being trapped in allowing peace to normalize a situation where the power is very unevenly distributed and the asks of the two parties therefore have to be very different?
First, we agree with you in everything you said. The conflict is asymmetrical. And I'll say, in the Futures piece, we talk about that very clearly. And I talk about it also from my personal experience. Within the peace camp, there has been significant problems, and in some organizations, still significant problems and asymmetry within the peace camp that has drove me away from this work for some time, because I felt uncomfortable being in organizations where Palestinians are token. And that does happen. And it is very important for all of us here to be aware of it and to not allow it to happen. And when I met with Maoz, I was very clear, I'm open to this relationship if I'm not a token. I do not want to be tokenized.
And if we sleep in a separate rooms.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I like Maoz, but not that much. So that's one. The second element is censorship and silencing. And when you read the Futures piece, you'll see we didn't silence or censor anybody. When we talked to Palestinians and talked about injustices and talked about the asymmetry and systemic oppression in the West Bank and Gaza, they were able to truly say what they're going through without any censorship. And it's very clear when you read it, whether it's in terminologies, whether it's in personal stories. It is very hard to read for a lot of people who see themselves in the pro-Israel camp, but it was very important for us that these stories are told. And the third thing, we believe that peace work should not be only on stages like this. So one of the things we doing this October, for example, is we encouraging and bringing ourselves, people to Israel and Palestine, to help with the olive harvest. Well, why the olive harvest? Because settlers attack the people there. And by bringing as many people as we can from outside and from Israel, we create a new paradigm, and we can support that community who, one, the people who will come will see that asymmetry we're talking about, but we also try to fix that asymmetry. And it's not only about dialogue. If the end goal of peace work is dialogue, then that's not enough. The end goal is ending the occupation. The end goal is justice. The end goal is equality. And so that's what motivates a lot of our work. And we continue to ask ourselves on a daily basis and talk to others and build coalitions and figure out what we're missing into how do we make that happen? How do we make sure that we don't become complacent and we don't become accepting of the current reality? And part of it saying we want a deal within the next 4 years is us saying we don't want to live in this reality where we say, oh, there's injustices, but we're working hard and it'll take forever. We say, no, it needs to be soon. The moment you say there's no dead end and we don't know when we're going to get there, then you don't work with that urgency. So we're doing a lot of that, but it's something we need everyone to help us figure out. And when you see us getting off our message, to come and remind us and say, guys, maybe you have gone astray. And we're very grateful for people who do that with us.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Firstly, thank you so much, both of you, for your moral and emotional courage. It's deeply inspiring. As you well know, October 7th and the Gaza war produced a huge amount of global activism on both sides of the conflict. What part of the global activism is helpful and what part of it is unhelpful? And how do you engage with global activism that kind of is unhelpful?
Okay, so I will start and maybe we won't give the same answer. First, I'm in favor, I'm an activist in my core. As also in my business, I was an activist. I always worked to fix the injustice everywhere I witness it. So I support and admire everyone who is willing to move out of his comfort zone and to be active, mostly when it's not only for his own sake, but for the others. But in the last 2.5 years, we've been really touring, like the US, Europe, been here in London a few times, and we see that cities, communities, universities, nations are importing the conflict. And the Israeli-Palestinian conflict become part of your personal identity. I'm pro this, I'm pro that. And by doing so, you are ensuring the conflict will continue. Because the one sitting next to you will choose the other side, and the other side. And so we are playing in the hands of those who thrive over this polarization, who thrive over spreading hate and fear and ignorance. So we need to counter that. And we need to counter that not by choosing a side, by taking a stand. And to stand with peace, to stand with justice, and then to act according to this stand. And we see, again, the reaction that we're giving language to people that many times were lost. And also those who are very loud, they're the minority. But like we now keep saying in all our recent media interviews, what bleeds leads. So they do a lot of noise, but we are the majority. But when we are silenced, we are letting others speak in our name. So we must start being loud. We must be bold. We must be courageous. Yes, we have a vision. Yes, we have a dream, and we're going to fulfill it. And we're going to fulfill it together. So this is, that's the answer. Thanks.
Aziz, you want to add anything?
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you both very much for being here today and for sharing your inspirational story. You spoke about nationalist or perhaps national narratives, and they're often premised on us versus them, or at least a sense of exceptionalism. We sometimes define ourselves by reference to the other. Conflict often feeds and serves these mythologies, particularly for those in power. It's a perverse counter-incentive to peace. And so my question is this: how do we make the quest for peace more imperative, more powerful, more visceral than the foundational stories that we tell ourselves?
Nice. one, there's nothing more powerful than stories. So the reason narratives are strong is a word, narrative. It's stories. And people, if you grew up with stories, these stories define your identity and who you are. And so part of it, there's a poet in Ireland named Badra Gutuma, and he has a poem about learning. He says, when I was a child, I learned to count. I'm going to butcher it, but he'll forgive me. I learned to count to 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But now I've been counting lives. One life, one life, one life, one life, one life, because each time is the first time that life has been taken. And I love this poem because it says we kind of have to unlearn some stories and we need to learn some stories. We have to put some doubts in some of our narratives and then bring some new stories. And those can be national narratives. You know, a lot of national narratives are built on mythologies and, you know, stories that are not fully true, but also even ancient narratives. One of the things we do in the Futures Peace, we take some, let's say, Greek mythology, and we re-look at some of those stories that are connected to us. So we didn't just go random Greek mythology. We're like, okay, some of the story, one of the famous stories is about Perseus coming through, I'm probably said his name wrong, Perseus. He comes through Jaffa, and there he saves Andromeda. And it's a major story, love story in Jaffa, and oh, what a happy story. But how did he save her? Because he had beheaded the Medusa, and he uses the head of the Medusa to kill a monster at the sea where her parents were planning to sacrifice her, because you give your child to the monster of the sea to save the city. Kind of very similar to what people do today, what our politicians, they sacrifice us for the sake of whatever, a ridiculous cause. And so, but when you look at the story and you go, who is this Medusa? Was she really that evil? And he goes and kills her, and you realize, oh, she actually was a beautiful, pious, dedicated woman, young woman who decided to be celibate and go and serve in the temple of Athena. And then Poseidon, the father of Perseus, comes and rapes her. And she doesn't get any help. She doesn't get any support. She doesn't get healing, therapy, whatever. Instead, she gets punished for it. And Athena decides to punish her, to make her the woman that if anybody looks in her eyes, they turn into a stone. And this becomes the main narrative. And our argument, we can't accept those narratives. We have to go back and say, maybe it's the opposite. Maybe the only way to deal with, quote unquote, monsters is to look them in the eyes. Not because you're only going to humanize them, because you also humanize yourself in the process. And I think maybe back to your earlier question about what do you do as a human being with all the activism going on, I think this is what we need to do, is you look at the people, and you look at people like whoever the Medusa in our communities are, and go look them in the eyes and talk to them and humanize them, and in the process we humanize ourselves. This is terribly needed in our region, it's terribly needed everywhere in the world, is to look at those narratives and reframe some of them and tell the story a little differently.
Thank you very much.
Hello, thank you very much. I wanted to pick up on something that Maoz said about the internationalization of the conflict and how it's exported. I very much agree with the idea that all conflicts end. They all do, and Israel-Palestine is no different and will be no different. But where it is unique is that it has been weaponized as part of the wider culture wars. So along with gender equality, along with climate change, and not just that, but it's been adopted by extremist politicians from Tommy Robinson to actors to Viktor Orban. You know, this is inescapable, and even beyond that, I'm sure that tens of thousands of social media accounts that feature watermelons or Israel flags are actually Russian bots. So with that unique and perhaps overwhelming onslaught of geopolitical manipulation, how can individual stories really be organically told?
So this is exactly why we are speaking worldwide. This is why it was so important for us to speak with Jon Stewart at the Daily Show. Why it was so important. It's so important for us to be here. And again, we were this morning speaking to the Jewish Chronicle. We were live on LBC. We gave another interview with Ireland. We're speaking to the world. We're speaking to policymakers. We're speaking to faith, religious leaders, and we want to speak to the people, because it's us, the people, that has the agency to change this power dynamic, to change this polarization, to change those that thrive over polarizing and dividing between us. So our ask is to you. How can you partner with us? How can we all work together? Because we already seen that what's happened in Israel and Palestine, that stays in Israel and Palestine. The fire spread. It spread to Lebanon, it spread to Iran, and it will go on spreading. So it's not about the poor Israelis and Palestinians. It's about each one of us. So this is why we must work together and to change it.
Amazing. I think there was one more question here. I'm just going to take the last question, and then we are going to wrap.
I'm so happy. The last two events, my son was in the audience, and his questions are the most difficult one to answer. But he already on his way back, so he's not here. I'm so relieved that I don't see him there. I have a question. So
it's not that his questions are hard. He's not satisfied with the answers. That's a problem.
Hi, I wanted to also thank you very much for being here, and for also being on my Instagram feed, and in lots of other social media. You guys pop up, and I'm always really thrilled to see you. So thank you for your campaign in this area. I'm really interested actually in your work, your previous work, your sort of social entrepreneurship work. I was at the Avraham Hostel, and I thought it was great. I thought the concept was fantastic, and I'm curious about the idea of trying to bring peace through business, which I know you've been advocating for, that it's not just about politicians.
Yes, just a second, I bring the mandala. You have it here? So, which Abraham were you and when? Can I ask?
Tel Aviv.
Tel Aviv. So we opened Abraham Tel Aviv in 2016, and for 4 years I managed the hostel. And when we opened, my mom was a mandala painter, and she painted thousands of mandalas, but I received only one. And I see some mothers here maybe in the audience, and definitely many boys and kids. So I have to confess, when you mothers give us something, we don't really read it. We'll take the money if there is money in the envelope, but we are not going to actually read.
Maybe sons.
Some. So the mandala my mom gave me was in my office at my back, and I didn't really look into it. And only a few weeks after October 7th, and that I went to say hello to my friends and partners, I read it for the first time. And it says, all our dreams can be fulfilled if we have the courage to chase them. And since October 7th, I have a completely different dream. And I realized that to keep investing in tourism and go nearly bankrupt with every war that's just happening again and again and again, I'm just wasting my time. I'm wasting my time, my energy, and my skills that I gained through working in tourism, through building bridges with Palestinians really across the Middle East. And I've decided to quit tourism for a while and focus on the source of what's happening in the Middle East. And the source is a century-long conflict that must, can, and will be ended. And I want to do everything that is within my power, within my agency, to do it as soon as possible. It's too late for Taysir, Aziz brother. It's too late for our beloved parents. It's too late for so many, but it's not too late for the 14 million people, Palestinian Israelis, living between the Jordan River and the Mediterranean Sea nowadays. So this is, I'm so focused on that.
In my case, I mean, the same in the sense, if I only focus on tourism in Israel and Palestine, we'll be bankrupt like everybody. We are running a few trips. Maoz and I actually are leading a trip together that follows the book. You're gonna get one of these with every book you buy, so buy some books. And you can get the boarding pass anyway, and we'll talk about it in a second. There's a QR code that will take you. One of the things there is that trip, and we're gonna follow the path of the book. We have few other trips, but we have to depend on trips outside Israel and Palestine, Majdi Tours now. Similar concept where in Israel and Palestine we had an Israeli and a Palestinian guide co-leading trips together. In Northern Ireland we got a former IRA and a former British soldier, and they co-lead that trip together. Funny enough, least people will book that trip are British. Americans will love it. And then we run a trip in Washington that has a Democrat and a Republican that co-lead a tour. And least people who will book it are Americans, because we don't want to face the problems in our own society sometimes. We want to go far away. We do it in South Africa. We do tours in Uzbekistan and in all kind of places. But if we didn't branch out to other countries, I'd be bankrupt. And I believe, and I think both of us, travel is an important part of people being open to the world. And so this is why the two of us, it's not by coincidence we ended up working in travel, and not by coincidence that the book is a travelogue in some ways. We go for a week exploring Israel and Palestine, but also I think we do need business leaders to be involved in peacemaking. You cannot detach yourself as a business leader from reality on the ground. Say, I'm going to only focus on business. Or you're a celebrity. I hear all of this nonsense of you're a celebrity. You should never use your voice for anything except your art. What the heck? Since when do we have to not say what we think and what we believe in? I think we need celebrities. We need influencers. If anything, I would argue the problem is not enough people who have a platform, using their platform for justice and peace. And we need everyone here to push those who have influence to be willing to speak up, to be willing to share those messages, to make it more known that there is another path. And so business like tourism, but every business can be used for peace. Every institution can be used for peace. Like here, what you're doing today in the Conduit. Every platform can give a voice to peacemakers and can give a place for peacemakers to be in it.
Thank you very much. I think, unfortunately, we're out of time. I want to thank you both for guiding us through this incredible transformative journey, for showing us the land not just through your own eyes, but through each other's eyes. And I think that's one of the remarkable things when you listen to them speak, is how much they are telling each other's story. I mean, obviously they're spending way too much time together, which is probably why, but I think...
We take a break from Sunday, we take a break.
Excellent. But I think, for us, for people who actually believe that peace is still possible, that peace can succeed, the directive is essentially to recommit to peace every single day, to the path of peace. I think you say in the book, towards the end, peace is an action. So one sentence each, give this room the marching orders. What should we do to help bring peace before 2030?
In one sentence.
One sentence.
2. Because don't buy only one book, buy 2. Amplify those messages. It's not just Aziz and I, there are so many like us walking on the ground. So amplify our message, make sure your friends, your family, your community, your colleagues, your politician knows about us, and your media and favorite journalists, send your favorite journalist or
send them the book.
Send them the book and send them about us. We'd love to go and speak to anyone. Amplify, legitimize us. So we need business people to legitimize us, because business people knows that without a dream, without a roadmap, we are not going to achieve anything. So we want to work with you. We are reaching out to your partnership, to your friendship, and together we can make it.
That's the longest sentence ever.
There was not a lot of punctuation in that.
Yeah, I can go and on and on and on and on.
Arabic and Hebrew, you can do a full paragraph, not a one punctuation. I would say don't buy the book only for yourself. Buy it for somebody who you believe will need to read it. Like I said, I want each one of you to get one of these, one of the mandalas, and check the QR code. And I'll end with a poem, Travel Tickets, since we're talking about travel. It's by Samih al-Qasim, a Palestinian Druze poet. And in it he says, the day I'm killed, my killer rifling through my pockets will find travel tickets. One to peace, one to the fields and the rain, and one to the conscience of a humankind. So I beg you, my dear killer, don't ignore them. Don't waste such a thing, but take and use the tickets. Please, I beg you to go traveling.
Thank you very much, Aziz and Maoz. Thank you all. I should say we're going to bring up the table now so that they can do a bit of a book signing. So if you were smart enough to buy it in advance, you can get to be at the front of the queue. But thank you all very much.